This poem is called Certainty. And all you need to know, it takes place in Charlotte in 1976 when I first came to North Carolina. And I was at a wild party with my wife, who wasn't my wife yet, and my Vista boss, a guy named Jim Plumley. And we had come in Jim's Honda. It was one of the first Hondas back in '76, and they were teeny little cars. Parked it on 8th Street. We were in the party all night. I mean, hours and hours and hours. And we walked back on 8th Street to get back in the car. The car was coming down the street towards us. Certainty. Far from home, penniless, food stamps, everything from Goodwill. I live with Joan Carey, a Baptist girl from Tucker, Georgia. For $80, we leased a Charlotte attic across from Detox and Memorial Stadium and worked in prisons. My family in Pittsburgh wondered what I was doing for no wage and why, all the way down in North Carolina like some agitator. The certainty I lived in then made me happier than I've ever been. One tour at August night, 3 a.m., we barged out of a party at the Weavers. Joan and I and Jim, our Vista boss. We had come in Jim's tiny Honda, brown, homely tires the size of saucers. We were headed for Krispy Kreme up on Independence. The hot donuts now neon about to announce yet another epiphany in that enchanted tropical August. Joan was 20. Sundresses I remember like pets from my childhood. And Jim so young and confident. Inside, they danced to Thelma Houston's Don't Leave Me This Way, setting fire to Hallelujah, the last sacrifice of summer, hearts and windows shattered across the Queen City. Glad to be together, we stepped into the street toward the car, yet the night was far from over, yet up in the huge magnolias early morning cast its thermal hush upon the revel. The three of us saw it at the same time. Jim's Honda, somehow detached from its station at the curb, rolled down the middle of 8th Street. An automobile, inexplicably animated with sinister purpose, as though we'd tripped unwittingly through the scrim, segregating us from that other world where things happen for no reason at all. Jim and I intercepted it, backpedaling as it bulled us toward the intersection until we finally halted at inches from catastrophe. We looked at one another and laughed, the way convicts ambling Huntersville Yard laughed about building 30, 40 years in the penitentiary. Guys my age who wouldn't see the streets again until after the sons Joan and I would one day parent, had grown into men and left home. The laugh Joan and I exchange all too often when the unimaginable hurtles into an otherwise placid day. The laugh I think of now is fear. This is a very short story, flash fiction, that I hope has something in common with narrative poetry too, since I think a lot of the genres that are being taught really leak into one another. And it's called Zeppola, Zeppole. It's a little Italian pastry that is made sometimes, and I'm gonna dedicate this to my friend DeStefano here, since she's my Italian, my compadre here. So, my mother swears she's pregnant. She wants to cook, which she never does. In our house, my father handles the cooking. As recently as yesterday, she wasn't even speaking to us, but this baby, she says, has her happy, and she wants to make Zeppola. Little patties of dough fried in hot olive oil and then sprinkled with sugar. She has a craving, the way her mother used to make them. I don't remember ever eating them, but my mother assures me I have, and my grandmother's, but we hardly see her anymore, and I'm not certain I'd recognize her if she crashed through the roof. My mother produces a white prayer book with a tiny lock, like an antique diary's. With a key the size of an infant's thumbnail, she opens it. Should she drop to her knees, mumbling antiphonies like those insane Calabrian widows on Good Fridays at the graveyard, I will fall over dead in astonishment, and my father will join me. But she does not pray. Rather, she takes from the prayer book's withered, secret pages a slip of frayed paper, and reading from it as she puffs on a Chesterfield, She assembles the grayish-yellow mound of dough. My father sits reading the obituaries at the kitchen table, wearing a long white terry cloth robe with a black hex sign on the back. He looks like a prize fighter. He tells my mother that Philly Decker died and is laid out at Febrero's. Did somebody shoot him, or did he just eat himself to death? She asks. Doesn't mention, says my dad. I thought he was too in love with himself to die, my mother says. How will the world keep spinning? I think we should go see him, Rita, says my dad. You go. I never liked him, but please tell him I said hello. Your mother has no respect for the dead, Fritz, he says to me, or for the living. He gets up and takes the newspaper into the living room. I follow him, lie on my stomach on the floor with the comics and doze off. As I sleep, the dough, hunkered in a glass bowl covered with a tea towel, miraculously doubles in size. Big boy. When I wake, I walk toward the kitchen. My mother in a pink summer nightgown stands at the ironing board, running the steaming wedge back and forth across the collar of the black dress she'll wear to work. The iron occasionally hisses. From the radio, volume hiked way up, Elvis Presley in a whispery voice sings, I can't help falling in love with you. She sings along. She irons fervently, churchy, then sways, guided by Elvis over the dance floor of dream. She has not noticed me. There are tears in her eyes. Behind her, like Excelsior, sun sprays the window, silhouetting her, the gown chiseled in relief, her hair spun at her crown in filigrees, her face a marbled shadow of backlight out of which drifts a disembodied yearning, not clearly my mother's. And for that instant, I am blinded and do not see until the sun flares off the Pentecostal flames from the ignited oil in the skillet raging behind her. Mom, I scream. She looks up, surprised and smiles, still singing unabashedly, take my hand, take my whole life too. Then she turns and sees the fire licking at her. She grabs the wooden skillet handle. The flames leap from the skillet to her gown, pour over it like liquid, and she is instantly engulfed. The music like Requiem, Elvis Presley, like the cantor at high mass looping incense over his mesmerized flock as the church burns down. I can't move. I can't take my eyes off her. No longer my mother, like sacred art restored, an angel wedding fire. My father storms by me and scoops up my mother. He kicks open the screen door. There's an audible suspiration as he too catches fire, stumbling down the 3 concrete steps to the yard where he drops her, still clutching the spouting skillet in my swimming pool, then simply steps out of his fiery robe and leaps into the water beside her. The pool has sat in the little yard all winter. Leaves float on its surface. Neighborhood dogs drink out of it. The blue plastic bottom patterned with yellow cartoon fish with long-lashed eyes and huge puckered lips is slick with algae. The round aluminum frame is caving. Unharmed, my mother and father sit next to each other in the pool, laughing. She in what's left of the charred pink gown, bit by bit it falls off her body and floats on the water like scraps of flesh. My father is naked. Together they splash water on his burning robe, until the flames die down, and there is the sodden smell of fried terry cloth, the nubs at the end of each thread brown on white like blackened marshmallows.